The deep hum of the Starship Venturer resonated through the empty halls as Captain Jason Holt sat in his usual spot by the wide, curved window of the ship's observation deck. He watched the endless expanse of stars blur past him, a shimmering river of light. Space was cold and infinite, but after years of piloting ships through the far reaches of the galaxy, it felt more like home than Earth ever had. Jason was part of Earth's fledgling deep space exploration program, a pilot by profession but a wanderer by heart. He was tasked with charting the vast unknown regions of the Orion Belt, searching for new planets, resources, and intelligent life. Most of the time, it was a lonely job. But 4 years ago, that changed. That's when he met Zurich. Jason first encountered Zurich during a mission near the edge of an uncharted system. His ship had been ambushed by pirates, a band of raiders scavenging the stars for technology and cargo from unwary vessels. Just when Jason thought his ship would be overrun, a massive cruiser, sleek and silver as a blade, appeared out of nowhere. It decimated the pirate ships in a matter of moments. Jason was left alive and bewildered, staring at the mysterious vessel hanging in the void. Moments later, a voice came through his communicator, deep and strangely melodic. "You're not very good at avoiding trouble, are you, human?" That was the first time Jason heard Zurich's voice. Zurich was unlike any other alien Jason had encountered in his journeys. A tall, imposing figure with smooth, almost metallic skin that shimmered under different lights. His eyes' liquid silver pools seemed to hold the wisdom of 1,000 lifetimes. He was a Tharnan, a member of a race known for their immense wealth and advanced technology, but who rarely interacted with other species. Tharnans were mysterious, rarely leaving their luxurious homeworld, and Zurich was the first of his kind that Jason had ever seen. Despite his aloof and intimidating presence, Zurich was surprisingly sociable. Over time, the two developed a bond first out of necessity, then out of genuine friendship. Zurich, it turned out, was a wanderer, much like Jason. He had grown bored of the rigid formality of life on Tharna and had taken to traveling the galaxy in search of adventure and new experiences. The two men, despite their vast differences, found common ground in their love of exploration. Jason often marveled at how easily they got along. Zurich's wit was sharp and dry, and he had a habit of making biting remarks about humans' lack of technological sophistication. But behind the teasing, there was a respect that both men shared. "You humans have potential," Zurich would say on quiet nights aboard his cruiser, where the two would share a drink, Jason with his whiskey, Zurich with some glowing, alien concoction. "You just don't realize how primitive you still are." "I'll take that as a compliment," Jason had replied once, clinking his glass against Zurich's strange, crystalline vessel. "But for a primitive species, we've managed to survive pretty well." It wasn't until one night, during one of their many conversations, that Zurich finally spoke of the one thing that truly anchored him: his wife, Syrah. "I never told you about her, did I?" Zurich said, leaning back in his chair, his gaze distant, as though he were staring at a galaxy light years away. "Syrah. She is unlike anyone you've ever met. She's beautiful, yes, but it's her mind that sets her apart. She's one of the brightest intellects on Tharna, and believe me, that's saying something." Jason had been taken aback. For all of Zurich's stories about his adventures, he had never once mentioned Syrah. It was as if speaking about her made him vulnerable, something Zurich didn't often allow. "I think I would like to meet her someday," Jason had said cautiously. Zurich's expression had softened, a rare moment where the veil of his usual sardonic demeanor lifted. "Perhaps you will," he'd replied quietly, almost wistfully. But that meeting never came. Not then. It wasn't long after that conversation that Zurich vanished. It happened suddenly and without warning. One day, they were charting a new star system together, and the next, Zurich was simply gone. His ship disappeared off sensors, as if it had never existed. Jason spent weeks searching, sending out distress signals, tracing every possible route Zurich could have taken. He consulted with Tharnan authorities, who were as baffled as he was. But in the vastness of space, a disappearance wasn't uncommon, even for someone as powerful as Zurich. Jason returned to his missions, but the loss weighed heavily on him. His cosmic friendship had been one of the few constants in his otherwise transient life, and now that connection had been severed without explanation. He sat once again in the observation deck of his ship, staring out at the endless stars. He couldn't shake the feeling that Zurich's disappearance wasn't an accident, that something far greater was at play. And though he didn't know it yet, Zurich's absence was about to change Jason's life in ways he could never have imagined. Just as Jason was about to turn in for the night, the ship's communicator beeped. It was an official transmission from Tharna. "Captain Holt," the voice said, calm and professional. "We have news concerning Zurich of House Corian. You are required to attend a reading of his will on Tharna. Your presence is mandatory." Jason froze, his mind racing. Zurich was dead? How? Why? And why would his will involve Jason? Before he could process the flood of questions, the voice continued, "By Tharnan custom, you are now the primary beneficiary of his estate. You must come at once." Jason stared at the communicator, the weight of those words sinking in. He had just inherited Zurich's entire fortune. And whatever else came with it. "Survival is easy," Zurich had countered, his silver eyes gleaming in the dim light. "It's mastering the stars that's hard." Jason had learned a great deal from Zurich about the galaxy, about Tharnan culture, about the endless possibilities that awaited among the stars. Zurich's wealth and power were beyond anything Jason could imagine. He owned fleets of ships, entire planets of resources, and artifacts from civilizations that had vanished long before Earth had developed fire. But despite his fortune, Zurich was restless. It was something Jason had always sensed, a deep yearning for something more. She was everything Zurich had described and more. Tall, elegant, her metallic blue skin shimmering under the chamber's soft lights. Her long, dark hair cascaded down her back, catching the light in a way that made it seem alive. Her silver eyes, the same as Zurich's, locked onto Jason's, and he felt an immediate wave of uncertainty wash over him. But it wasn't just her beauty that struck Jason. It was the presence she carried, calm, composed, and undeniably regal. She walked toward him with a grace that seemed almost unreal, her movements fluid and purposeful. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft but authoritative, like a distant melody. "So, you are the one Zurich chose," she said, her eyes assessing him, not unkindly, but with an air of curiosity. "I've heard much about you, Jason Holt." Jason stood, feeling suddenly very small in her presence. "Syrah," he stammered, unsure of what to say. I don't really know what to say. This is all so unexpected." Syrah smiled slightly, though there was a sadness behind her eyes. "It is unexpected for me as well. But Tharnan law is absolute. Zurich made his choice, and now we must both respect it." Jason nodded, still trying to wrap his mind around everything. "I don't even know what this means. I mean, in human culture, it's strange." Syrah finished for him. Her smile grew a little more, this time with genuine warmth. "I understand. But Tharnan customs are not human customs. Here, when a partner passes, their legacy is passed on entirely, including their spouse. I am not merely an inheritance, Jason. I am a guardian of Zurich's knowledge, and now I will be yours to guide." Jason took a deep breath. "And what if you don't want this? What if you don't want me?" Syrah tilted her head slightly, studying him. "What I want is irrelevant to the law. But Zurich chose you for a reason. He believed in you, and I trust his judgment. We will find a way forward, Jason Holt. Together." Jason didn't know how to respond to that. He could only nod, his mind reeling. He had inherited Zurich's fortune, yes, but far more than that, he had inherited responsibility, power, and a bond with a woman he didn't even know. As the two of them left the chamber, Jason couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. Tharna was a world of wealth and luxury, but it was also a world of secrets. And with Sira by his side, he would soon discover that Xeric's legacy was far more dangerous and far-reaching than he could have ever imagined. But then, Xeric's image grew somber, and his tone shifted. "There's one other matter," the hologram continued. "My wife, Sira." Jason felt his stomach lurch. Xeric had spoken of Sira only once, describing her as the most brilliant mind on Tharna. Jason had never imagined he'd ever have anything to do with her, let alone now. "She will remain under your care," Xeric said. "By Tharnan law, upon my passing, Sira is bound to my heir. To you. This is not something I decided lightly, Jason. I know it's unusual by human standards, but you must understand that Sira is not just my wife, she's a crucial part of my legacy. Her knowledge, her skills, are beyond anything you've encountered. She will be your guide, your partner, just as she was mine. I ask that you respect her as you respected me." Jason's mind spun. He had expected to inherit a fortune, sure, but a person? A wife? That was something his earthborn sensibilities couldn't fully grasp. He looked to the executors, who stood silently, watching him as though they were waiting for him to absorb the enormity of what he had just heard. Xeric's hologram spoke one last time before flickering out. "Take care of her, Jason. She's more important than you know." The room fell into silence. Jason's thoughts were a whirlwind of confusion, disbelief, and guilt. Sira. What would she think of this? What did it even mean to inherit someone in Tharnan culture? The doors to the chamber slid open once more, and Jason turned to see a figure stepping through. Sira. The descent to Tharna was unlike anything Jason had ever experienced. His ship, Venturer, was guided by an automated escort system that synchronized with the planet's advanced technology. As the planet's golden surface drew closer, he could see the intricately woven cities that seemed to hover just above the ground, suspended on invisible forces. Sprawling crystalline lakes sparkled under a sky with two suns, one soft and blue, the other a deep crimson. Tharna was breathtakingly beautiful, more work of art than a planet, and far beyond anything Jason had seen in his travels. His hands gripped the controls, though the ship was being guided automatically. His thoughts were consumed with questions. Xeric dead? How could a being as powerful as Xeric, with access to the most advanced technology in the known galaxy, simply perish? And why would Xeric leave his fortune to him, a simple human pilot? Jason had expected adventure in the stars, but never something like this. The Venturer landed smoothly on a floating platform made of gold-tinted metal that reflected the sky above. Awaiting him were two Tharnan officials, draped in long, flowing robes that shimmered in the sunlight. Their skin, much like Xeric's, had a metallic sheen, and their eyes were pools of liquid silver. They nodded in unison as he disembarked, their expressions unreadable. "Captain Jason Holt," one of them said, his voice low and measured. "Welcome to Tharna. We are the executors of Xeric's estate." Jason nodded back, swallowing the growing knot of anxiety in his throat. "Thank you. I didn't expect to be here under these circumstances." The officials exchanged a glance, though their faces remained neutral. "Come with us. The reading of Xeric's will is a private matter, and all will be explained." They led him through the vast halls of Tharna's central court, where everything gleamed with a golden hue. Jason had seen wealth in his time, but nothing like this. Every inch of the architecture was a masterpiece, as if the planet itself was showing off its immense power and luxury. As they walked, Jason noticed Tharnan citizens observing him from a distance, whispering in their native tongue, their eyes full of curiosity. It was clear that a human on Tharna, especially under these circumstances, was a rarity. Finally, they arrived at a grand chamber. The doors slid open with a quiet hiss, revealing a spacious room with high ceilings and walls lined with holographic screens. In the center of the room stood a large circular table with a hologram of Xeric himself projected above it. His image flickered slightly, a reminder that he was no longer among the living. The executors motioned for Jason to take a seat. He sat, feeling the weight of the moment press down on him. As soon as he was seated, the hologram of Xeric began to speak. "Jason," the hologram said, and despite knowing it was only a recording, Jason felt a pang of loss hearing his friend's voice again. "If you're seeing this, it means I have passed into the next state. Death, as you humans call it." The hologram paused for a moment, its silver eyes looking directly at Jason. "We never talked much about Tharnan beliefs, did we? My people don't see death as an end. We see it as a transition, a transformation into something beyond the physical. But even though I have left this form behind, I've made certain preparations for those I leave behind." Jason shifted in his seat, uncomfortable with the idea of Xeric being gone. The recording continued. "Of all the beings I've met in my travels, Jason, you are the one I trusted the most. You and I may be from different worlds, but you showed me something rare: loyalty without expectation, curiosity without judgment. That's why I've left you my estate. My fortune, my ships, my holdings, everything." Jason's heart pounded in his chest. The scale of what Xeric was saying was incomprehensible. The quiet hum of the Venturer echoed through its command deck, but Jason Holt's mind was far from at ease. He stood by the large observation window, staring out at the twin suns of Tharna casting their golden and crimson hues over the horizon. His thoughts drifted back to the meeting with Syrah and the staggering weight of responsibility that now rested on his shoulders. Xeric had left him a fortune, but more importantly, he had left him Syrah, an incomprehensible treasure by any standard, both in terms of intellect and her intrinsic connection to Xeric's legacy. Jason turned to face Syrah, who was sitting at one of the control consoles, her long, graceful fingers gliding over the Tharnan holographic interface with effortless precision. She was examining one of Xeric's most powerful creations, his hidden fleet, a vast armada of starships that had been kept secret even from most Tharnans. Xeric had entrusted the knowledge of these ships to Syrah, and now she was passing it on to Jason. "I still don't understand why Xeric kept so much hidden," Jason muttered, running a hand through his hair. "He had everything. Power, wealth, influence. Why hide an entire fleet?" Syrah looked up, her silver eyes reflecting the light of the distant stars. Xeric was a visionary, but also a realist. He understood the fragility of peace in this galaxy. While Tharna is powerful, our world has enemies, some of them ancient, some of them new. He built this fleet not just for Tharna, but for a threat he believed was inevitable. Jason frowned. "What threat?" Syrah's expression darkened. "The Zalarian Horde." The name sent a chill down Jason's spine. He had heard rumors of the Zalarians' whispers among space travelers, stories of entire colonies disappearing overnight, and ships vanishing without a trace. The Zalarians were a warrior race from the Outer Rim, known for their brutality and insatiable hunger for conquest. For centuries, they had been kept at bay by alliances and advanced civilizations, but their thirst for power was unrelenting. Jason sat down beside Syrah, the weight of the situation settling on him like a leaden blanket. "You think the Zalarians are coming for Tharna?" "They already are," Syrah said, her voice steady but grim. She brought up a holographic map of the galaxy, pinpointing the recent movements of the Zalarian fleets. Xeric knew it was only a matter of time. The Zalarians have been expanding aggressively in the Outer Rim, and now they're pushing deeper into the core systems. Tharna is one of the most valuable planets in this region. Our technology, our resources there irresistible to the Zalarian warlords. Jason's stomach twisted. And Xeric's death. Could it be related to them? Syrah paused, her eyes narrowing as she considered the possibility. It's not impossible. Xeric was always careful, always one step ahead of his enemies. For him to disappear so suddenly, it would take someone or something with immense power. Jason clenched his fists. If the Zolarians had anything to do with Ziric's death, they were about to make the biggest mistake of their existence. But revenge wasn't the only thing on Jason's mind. If the Zolarians were indeed planning an attack, then Tharna was in grave danger. "What can we do?" Jason asked, leaning forward. "We can't fight the Zolarians with just the two of us." Syrah smiled faintly, a glimmer of confidence in her otherwise serious demeanor. "That's where Ziric's fleet comes in. The ships are hidden in a nebula just outside Tharna's system. Ziric spent years developing them, far beyond the technology of any other fleet in the galaxy. With those ships, we stand a chance." Jason raised an eyebrow. "Why hasn't anyone used them before?" "Because no one but Ziric and I knew of their existence," Syrah explained. "Ziric didn't trust Tharnan politics, and neither do I. The Council would have used the fleet for their own power struggles. Ziric intended it for a far greater purpose, to protect Tharna when the inevitable threat arrived. That time is now." Jason nodded, though doubt still gnawed at him. Leading a hidden fleet of the most advanced starships in the galaxy wasn't exactly in his job description. He was a pilot, a capable one, but this was far beyond anything he'd ever dealt with. He had led small expeditions, fought off space pirates, and navigated dangerous star systems, but commanding a fleet against the Zolarian horde. That was another level entirely. Syrah seemed to sense his hesitation. "You're not alone in this, Jason. Ziric chose you because he believed in your ability to adapt, to lead when the time came. And I am here to guide you. Together, we can stop the Zolarians." Jason stared into her silver eyes, feeling the intensity of her conviction. There was something about Syrah that instilled confidence, even when the odds seemed impossible. Maybe it was the way she carried herself, or the quiet strength she exuded, but Jason found himself nodding. If anyone could help him navigate this, it was her. Suddenly, the ship's alarm blared, and the control panel lit up with warnings. Jason shot to his feet, rushing to the command console. Syrah was already at work, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface. "What's happening?" Jason asked, his voice sharp with urgency. Syrah's expression hardened. "Zolarian warships. They've entered Tharna's system." Jason's heart raced as the ship sensors displayed the incoming fleet. The Zolarian vessels were monstrous, black and jagged, like creatures from a nightmare. They moved with terrifying speed and precision, heading straight for Tharna's capital city. "We don't have much time," Syrah said, her voice calm but firm. "We need to activate Ziric's fleet." Jason nodded, adrenaline surging through his veins. "Where's the fleet?" Syrah brought up a map of the nebula on the console. "It's hidden here, in the Valerian Nebula, just outside the system. We can reach it in minutes if we push the engines to their limit." Jason took the controls, his fingers flying over the ship's systems as he prepared the Venturer for maximum speed. "Hold on tight." The ship roared to life as Jason punched the engines, sending them hurtling toward the nebula at breakneck speed. Outside, the stars blurred into streaks of light as they raced through the void, leaving Tharna behind. Jason's heart pounded in his chest, but he forced himself to stay focused. This was at the moment Ziric had been preparing for, the moment Jason had never anticipated. They entered the nebula, the thick clouds of gas swirling around them in brilliant hues of purple and blue. As they approached the hidden coordinates, Syrah activated the fleet's systems, and one by one, the ships emerged from their cloaking fields. Dozens of sleek, silver vessels, each one more advanced than anything Jason had ever seen. They shimmered in the nebula's light, their hulls glowing with an otherworldly energy. "There they are," Syrah said softly, her voice tinged with pride. "Ziric's legacy." Jason's breath caught in his throat. He had never seen anything like it. These ships weren't just vessels, they were works of art, designed with a level of precision and beauty that defied human understanding. And they were his to command. "Let's do this," Jason said, determination hardening his voice. Syrah nodded, her hands moving swiftly over the controls as she transmitted orders to the fleet. The ships came to life, their engines roaring as they prepared for battle. As the fleet set course for Tharna, Jason steeled himself for the fight ahead. The Zalarians wouldn't know what hit them. By the time they re-entered Tharna's system, the Zalarian warships had already begun their assault. The city's golden spires were under siege, with explosions rippling across the horizon as Tharnan defenses struggled to hold the line. Jason felt a surge of anger as he saw the destruction below. He had spent too much time on Tharna, come to care too much about its people, to let the Zalarians tear it apart. "Engage the enemy," Jason ordered, his voice steady despite the chaos. The Tharnan fleet moved with stunning precision, weaving through the Zalarian ships like blades of light. Jason and Syrah coordinated the battle, each ship executing Zyrek's battle strategies to perfection. The Zalarians, though powerful, were unprepared for the ferocity of the counterattack. Jason's pulse quickened as he watched the Zalarian ships fall one by one, explosions lighting up the sky. The tide of battle was turning. He could feel it. But just as victory seemed within reach, an alert flashed across the console. Syrah's face darkened as she read the data. "They're sending reinforcements," she said, her voice tight. "A lot of them." Jason's eyes narrowed. "Then we'll just have to take them all." The battle was far from over, but for the first time, Jason felt something other than fear. He felt hope. With Syrah by his side and Zyrek's fleet at his command, they had a chance to win not just the battle, but the war against the Zalarian horde. The sky above Tharna was ablaze with the light of battle. Explosions and streaks of energy weapons crisscrossed the heavens as Zyrek's fleet clashed with the reinforcements of the Zalarian horde. Jason Holt stood at the command center of the Venturer, his gaze fixed on the holographic display tracking the war in real time. Syrah stood beside him, her face calm and composed, though her silver eyes flickered with intensity as she analyzed the situation. The Zalarians had thrown everything they had at Tharna, determined to crush the planet and claim its wealth for themselves. But they hadn't counted on Zyrek's hidden fleet. With the advanced technology of the Tharnan ships, and Syrah's tactical brilliance, Jason had managed to turn the tide of the battle. But now, with more Zalarian warships arriving by the minute, their advantage was rapidly diminishing. "This is it," Jason muttered to himself, gripping the control panel. "We either win this fight or we lose everything." Syrah glanced at him, her voice steady as ever. "We still have the element of surprise. The Zalarians don't know the full extent of Zyrek's fleet. There's one more trick up our sleeve." Jason looked at her, confused. "What do you mean?" Syrah's fingers flew across the control panel, bringing up a schematic of the flagship in the Fleet A massive vessel, twice the size of the other ships, hidden deep in the nebula. Zyrek developed this ship as the pinnacle of Tharnan technology. It's equipped with a planetary-scale energy weapon capable of wiping out entire fleets in a single strike. But it's never been tested. Jason's eyes widened. A weapon that powerful. Why didn't Zyrek use it before? Syrah's face darkened. Zyrek feared the consequences. It's more than just a weapon, it draws energy from the planet itself. Using it could cause catastrophic damage to Tharna. Jason's heart sank. It was the ultimate gamble. They could potentially save the planet, but they might destroy it in the process. He stared at the hologram of the flagship, weighing the impossible decision in his mind. If they didn't stop the Zalarians now, they would overwhelm Tharna's defenses. But if the weapon malfunctioned, or if they miscalculated, they could annihilate the very thing they were trying to protect. "I don't like it," Jason said, shaking his head. "It's too risky." Syrah stepped closer, her voice soft yet firm. "I know it's dangerous, Jason. But sometimes, the only way to save something is to risk everything. Zyrek trusted you with this fleet, and he trusted me to make these decisions. I believe we can use the weapon without destroying Tharna. But it's your choice." Jason clenched his fists, his mind racing. He looked out at the stars, where the Zolarians continued to press their attack. The Tharnan defenses were crumbling, and the fleet was being pushed back, ship by ship. He knew that if they didn't act soon, it would all be over. "Activate the weapon," Jason said, his voice firm. Syrah nodded, her face a mixture of relief and determination. She quickly transmitted the orders to the flagship, and the colossal vessel began powering up its energy core. Jason could feel the tension in the air as the ship's systems began to hum with raw power, the energy from Tharna's core being funneled into the weapon. The holographic display showed the Zolarian fleet moving in closer, unaware of the danger they were about to face. "Target locked," Syrah announced. "All systems stable." Jason swallowed hard. "Fire." The energy weapon unleashed a blinding beam of light, a torrent of pure power that cut through the void of space like a sword. It struck the heart of the Zolarian fleet, and for a moment, everything seemed to stand still. Then, the Zolarian ships began to disintegrate, one after another, consumed by the unstoppable force of the weapon. The massive vessels, which had been poised to overwhelm Tharna, crumbled into dust before Jason's eyes. The silence on the bridge was deafening as the weapon's power finally dissipated. Jason exhaled a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. The Zolarian fleet was gone. Destroyed. But at what cost? Jason immediately turned to the sensors, his heart pounding. "Damage report," he said, his voice tight with worry. Syrah's fingers moved rapidly over the controls as she scanned the planet. For a few tense moments, she said nothing. Then, she exhaled in relief. "The planet is stable," she said, her voice filled with quiet triumph. The weapon worked. Jason felt a wave of relief wash over him, but it was tempered by exhaustion. The battle was won, but he knew that the war was far from over. The Zolarians would return someday, more determined than ever to take what they believed was theirs. But for now, Tharna was safe. Syrah turned to Jason, her gaze softening as she stepped closer to him. "You did it, Jason. You saved Tharna." Jason met her gaze, feeling a strange mix of emotions. He had inherited Zirich's wealth, his fleet, his power, but none of that mattered as much as the connection he had forged with Syrah. She was no longer just a part of Zirich's legacy. She was his partner, in every sense of the word. "We did it," Jason corrected, offering a small smile. "I couldn't have done this without you, Syrah." Syrah's lips curled into a faint smile, and for the first time since Zirich's death, there was a warmth between them that went beyond duty or responsibility. There was trust, respect, and something deeper, something Jason had not expected when he first arrived on Tharna. In the days that followed, Tharna began to rebuild. The damage caused by the Zolarians had been extensive, but the planet's advanced technology and the resilience of its people ensured that recovery was swift. Jason, now regarded as a hero by the Tharnan people, found himself at the center of attention, a role he had never sought but couldn't avoid. Yet, despite the accolades and the newfound responsibility, Jason's thoughts always returned to Syrah. They spent more time together, working to ensure that Zirich's fleet remained hidden and prepared for any future threats. But more than that, they grew closer on a personal level. Syrah was no longer just Zirich's wife or a part of his inheritance. She was someone Jason had come to care for deeply. One evening, as the twin suns of Tharna set on the horizon, casting the planet in a golden and crimson glow, Jason and Syrah stood on the balcony of the royal palace. The war was over, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, there was peace. "Do you think Zirich knew this would happen?" Jason asked, his voice quiet as he gazed out at the shimmering city below. Syrah smiled softly, her silver eyes reflecting the dying light of the suns. "Zirich always saw farther than anyone else. He may not have known the exact details, but he knew the two of us would be a powerful force together." Jason chuckled. "I doubt he imagined things would turn out like this." Syrah turned to face him, her expression more serious now. "Jason, Zirich chose you for more than just your skills as a pilot or your loyalty. He saw something in you that I've come to see as well. You have the strength to lead, to carry his legacy forward. But more than that, you have the heart to care for this world and for its people. Jason looked at her, feeling the weight of her words, but also something else, something warmer, more personal. He had come to Tharna as a friend to Xeric, but he was staying for Syrah. And you? Jason asked softly, stepping closer. What do you see in all of this? Syrah met his gaze, and for the first time since they had met, the walls between them seemed to fall away completely. I see someone who has become more to me than just Xeric's heir. They stood there for a moment, the universe vast and silent around them. Jason knew that this was only the beginning of a new journey, one filled with uncertainty, danger, and, perhaps, love. But for the first time in his life, he felt ready for whatever the galaxy had to throw at him. Syrah took his hand, and together they looked out at the stars, their futures intertwined.